So, Chengdu Hunters. Like I said, this looks very boring because they have all of their players under contract, right? So what does that mean? They were an expansion team in 2019, so they didn't sign 1+1 contracts like the Atlanta Reign did. They signed at minimum 2+1 contracts, right? So they're guaranteed, their money is guaranteed for 2019 and 2020, and then probably they have an option to continue with those players in 2021. Who knows? It could be a 3+1 contract, but it seems unlikely. So, my question to you is, if you're running the Chengdu Hunters, how do you know these players are going to be good? Why do you want them to why do you want to be forced to pay them in 2020? And if you don't want to pay them, let's, for example, pick out like Gary, okay? Gary didn't really see much playtime, right? Or Jichirin. No, these guys didn't really see much playtime. They didn't look that great when they came in as well. Say you want to drop them next for 2020. You want to pick up somebody else. If you had them on a team option, like the Atlanta Reign do, you don't have to pay their contract. You can just release them as a free agent. But if they're under contract, like Gary is, then you still have to pay out his contract in 2020. Even if you cut him from the roster, you still have to pay his contract. You still have to pay him an amount that you had agreed to contract him for in the first place. So the way that teams get out of that is that they trade them to other players. Like I said, like with RCK, right? You traded that from Dallas, so now Boston has to pay his contract. But there's no other team in the league that speaks Mandarin. So there's no way that you can trade these players. If these players are just on your roster, they're stuck with you. They ain't going anywhere. If these guys were all free agents tomorrow, they'd all be trying to sign with the Chengdu Hunters. Chengdu have a monopoly on the Chinese market, and yet they've signed these guys to guaranteed contracts for 2 years. Why? Why not use the leverage that you have as the only Mandarin-speaking team and pick up new talent from China? I don't know. It's very strange. So now all of their salaries for the players that they would really like to make improvements at whatever role, like say Bacon Jack, he performed okay, but say you want an improvement. Say you've seen somebody from China who's a better player and you wish that you could drop Bacon Jack. You can't drop him. Or you can drop him, but you still have to pay his contract. He's still there on your budget. He's still sucking money away from your organization. Edge1, thank you for the Twitch Prime. Thank you for the 3 months. So then from there, that's the only other thing with Chengdu. Now, the counter argument to that is Chengdu wanted a team for 2020 when they moved back to Chengdu that people recognize. So they wanted them on guaranteed contracts so that when they came back to Chengdu, they just knew that they had the players that they had already set up, like a big market for. Say, for example, the Chengdu Hunters win the league in 2019. If all of these players were on team option or whatever, maybe, I don't even fucking know. Maybe I don't know. It doesn't even make sense because if they're on team option, they would leave in 2021 instead. I don't fucking understand why they're all on contract. I just don't get it. Oh my God, the dumpster fire that is Dallas Fuel. What in the love of everything that's holy is going on at Dallas? This team is allegedly one of the highest paid in the league, going above the soft salary cap, apparently, is what I've been told. And their players aren't free agents, apart from Note, whose contract was with the Boston Uprising. Their players aren't even on option. Their players are all fucking guaranteed for 2020. Who did this? Who did this and why? What? These really bad, outdated, and washed-up players in some scenarios are on guaranteed contracts for 2020 with some of the highest-paying contracts in the league. Who did this? Who are they just trying to burn money at the Dallas Fuel? What are they doing? They had to make big changes coming into the 2019 season because 2018 was a dumpster fire. So you'd think they'd be a bit experimental, allow themselves some flexibility, have people on options so that you can at least experiment coming into your fucking home territory for 2020. And instead, triple down, double down, triple down, quadruple down. All right, so these guys now have to be paid for 2020. Who in the love of God wants to pay Harry Hook or Mickey in 2020? Who wants to pay? You're never going to be able to trade any of these guys. How could Dallas Fuel trade these people away when they're on guaranteed contracts? So if you and they're on highly paid contracts allegedly. Now that might not be the case. These are just rumors that I've heard from talking to other people in the league. But this seems like madness. This seems very, very strange to me. Yeah, I know that Note is a free agent, but the reason that Note is a free agent is that Boston Uprising signed him in 2018 with a 1+1. So he had his first year guaranteed. He had his option, which was exercised in 2019, and that's the end of his contract that he signed with the Boston Uprising that got traded to the Dallas Fuel. So he's now a free agent. He can go anywhere. Now, the Dallas Fuel, in my opinion, one of the only people that they would want to bring back is Note. If I was Dallas, and speaking really like, I already did a whole video at the end of 2018 about how to rebuild Dallas. Now, I made a mistake in that video of suggesting that they should rebuild around Effect. If you were inside the Dallas Fuel, I bet you could have seen the writing on the wall with Effect. Obviously, I don't interact with the guy on a daily basis, but at the end of 2018, it should have been obvious that Effect was not, his heart wasn't in it, he was mentally a little bit all over the place, and then he exploded as soon as he went back to Korea and stuff. So I recommended that they should have gone with, I think, Effect, OG, and Unco was my recommendation for 2019. And I said just try and get rid of everybody else, or at least put them on the bench. Like, put Timey on the bench or something. Put AKM on the bench. But instead, they've tripled down on a core that's been incredibly unsuccessful and disappointing. And it doesn't even make sense. Like, I mean, the actual just fundamental way that the roster is put together doesn't make any sense. They are not going to have success with these players. They need to trade players away. And in order to trade players away and get them off their budget and onto other people's, they would have to persuade somebody to pick up, like, I mean, the most egregious ones are Harry Hook and Mickey, by a long shot. But also, like, Closer, AKM, honestly, like Taimu, even though Taimu had flashes of looking like he might go somewhere, and I could still see a resurgence in his career at some point in the future, like, selling these guys would be difficult at the best of times. And now you gotta try and rebuild for 2020, but they're all on guaranteed contracts. That just seems like a fucking crazy idea. And sure, you know, Mickey, they talk about him as like a franchise face or something. The dude hasn't played. Get out of here with, like, a franchise player that hasn't played. Like I was saying on stream yesterday, if you plotted the average distance away from the owl stage over the course of the year, Mickey might be number one. Like, I'm following his Instagram and he's, like, skiing in Japan and stuff while stage 2's going on. I don't know. Where is this guy? Where is this guy? What's he doing? And he's on a really long guaranteed contract with the Dallas Fuel for allegedly quite a lot of money. What the hell? I mean, Mickey's making off like an absolute thief. I mean, good for Mickey, but terrible for the Dallas Fuel. What the hell are they doing? So, I don't know, man. Also, with the coaching changes that are being made, I mean, I don't know whether you're keeping up to date with this thread. It's the AL 2020 off-season tracker, but a bunch of these people are all going all over the place, and I would be surprised if we don't see coaching moves from the Dallas Fuel as well. You know, some coaching moves. I'm not saying wholesale, but I would be surprised if we don't see some. And then I just don't understand. I don't understand the predicament that Dallas Fuel have got themselves in, because how do you sell these players? And if you don't sell them, then you are just burning money. So, fuck knows. This is a team that needs to be rebuild, but their contract situation doesn't allow them to rebuild without wasting a lot of money. Okay, let's move on anyway, because what do you even say about that shit? Now, you look at Dallas Fuel, dumpster fire of a season in 2018, dumpster fire of a season in 2019, fucked themselves over in terms of contracts by the look of it. Florida Mayhem, mega ultra dumpster fire in 2018, mega ultra dumpster fire in 2019 through stages 1, 2, and 3. Looked all right in stage 4. Looked like they could have some promise. Have they fucked themselves in contract situations? No, they haven't. Look at the flexibility here. Even with players that were signed, you know, late on in the season, like Gargoyle, they still have the option to be able to bring him back or not for next year. The only players that are under contract are Fate and Sire Player. 2 players that really are kind of well-known, have big fan bases. You could build a team around these guys. I like the way that Florida Mayhem has structured these contracts. It makes a lot of sense thinking about the future. Dumpster fire? At least you've called the firemen. Like, that's what you can say for the Florida Mayhem. At least they have the opportunity to put out the fire without burning their money. Like, at least they put their money in a fireproof container. That's the only thing that you can say about the Florida Mayhem. So, the Florida Mayhem could go with a team that builds around Fate and Sire Player. They could try and trade Fate and Sire Player to other teams and totally rebuild the roster. They could try and rebuild around people that were good, like Gargoyle. They could pick up his option in 2020 and rebuild around that. There's a lot of different places that Florida Mayhem could go. I think it's really important that they do change the roster in the offseason because they really only had one stage of being able to see what worked and what didn't. And I think back to the Dallas Fuel of 2018. They were horrible for 3 stages, and then in stage 4, they looked like they were doing okay. And then everybody on the Dallas Fuel seemed to sit back and just be like, no, we're good for 2019 then. We're good for the next season. As long as we did well in stage 4, we're good. Well, what was that? Mickey was playing a version of Brigitte that was absolutely busted in every entire way, and we just played Reinhardt the entire time and went back to our comfort picks. No, I'm sure that'll still work next season. Don't worry about it. They won't nerf her even slightly. So, you see what I mean? Like, the Florida Mayhem looked like they had signs of life. They went 4-3, I believe, in stage 4, but they still need to make massive changes to this roster and just I don't want to say gut, but they need a total new vision for how the team wants to do, because they are just like, they've been playing catch up this entire season.